Nigeria's fiscal outlook for 2025 is under serious threat, according to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, which has warned that the country must urgently revise its budget targets or face a deepening financial crisis. The IMF's latest Article 4 consultation report points to a significant risk of Nigeria exceeding its fiscal deficit projections for the year, driven by a combination of falling oil prices, lower production levels, and challenges in capital expenditure execution. It called on Nigerian authorities to take immediate action to recalibrate the country's fiscal policies and budget expectations to reflect the current economic realities, and the IMF further recommended spending more to cater to the poorest of the poor and the vulnerable. Since taking office in the past 2 years, President Bola Tinubu has embarked on key reforms that have repositioned Nigeria, placing it among countries with a market-driven economy. While the bold market policies, abolishing petrol subsidies, relaxing currency controls, and eliminating monetary financing appear to have brought some level of stability to a once stagnant economy, challenges persist, with poverty being the topmost threat. As we heard a brief minute ago, the International Monetary Fund, through its Article 4 report, has pointed the way towards bedding in government reform in the most desperate of all indices, poverty alleviation. Economist and financial analyst Dr. Boniface Chezie joins me now to share his thoughts. Thank you very much, Dr. Chezie, for joining us on This Day Live, this Sunday Talk Show.
Thank you for having me, Ruben. Thank you.
Well, the report was not all negative.
Yes.
The report that came out of that Article 4 consultation process says how Nigeria can unleash its potential.
Yes.
The IMF praised Nigeria, or President Tinubu's administration, for its economic reforms, yes, foreign exchange efforts, trying to remove oil subsidy or removing oil subsidy. Then said that to sustain the gains, particularly the 3.4%
growth in GDP.
GDP growth recorded in 2024, certain steps will have to be taken. On the fiscal side, that's where they talk about recalibration of the budget. On the monetary side, the IMF talked about inflation, still tackling inflation.
Yes.
On the social side, the IMF says you have to invest more in social spending and infrastructure. What do you think of those recommendations? Although, I must add the caveat, the IMF has consistently praised the Tinubu administration. Why is that the case?
Yes. Okay, Ruben, thank you very much for having me. It's a really pleasure to be with you on this space. I think that IMF, expectedly, as one should expect, IMF would praise the Tinubu administration because the Tinubu administration has hit to beat the bullets. The things that other regimes could not touch, they wouldn't touch. The administration touched it, and that's why, in fact, we are all in a crisis. The Buhari regime, that was just the immediate past regime, couldn't remove subsidy. Buhari kept subsidy on the last day of his government, and the floating the naira like they did also. It's something that it was hard to handle because the consequences were obvious, and of course we are now living with the consequences. So the problem is that if you remove the subsidy the way we did, some of us are on record. So anyway, let me say that because we're doing this, and that's what the IMF would want to see. Now, of course, so the Tinubu's administration became for the IMF a blue-eye boy. So they are bound to praise them. But what the Tinubu administration has done, of course, we are sweating under it. We are tasting the bitter pill of what is happening. So they are bound to praise them. But also, we must give it to IMF. They've come out to say, did their report, and they've touched on many issues. They looked at the growth in the economy. They praised this government, for the growth, which, as you just mentioned in your introduction, was 3.4%. Of course, our National Bureau of Statistics put it at about 2.9 for a change, so we are putting our own figures a bit below what IMF says, so they put it at that. But yes, we have a growth of 3.4%. What might be of concern is where is this growth coming from? And so if the growth is coming from the service sector, as is clearly the case, and so what that means is that you will not, the impact of the growth on the rest of the economy is not being felt. And so if the growth is coming from the real sector of the economy, it's coming from manufacturing, industry, agriculture, and so on, then you have real productivity. This is coming from services and the extractive sector. And so what that impact of that, for instance, in on unemployment is limited. Those are a part of the worries.
Okay.
Yes.
One of the things that the IMF stated is that the Nigerian government has an obligation to increase domestic revenue.
Yes.
And to limit the spending on debt financing, and so that they will be able to, the government will be able to free revenue for social spending, human capital development, and infrastructure. Now, this revenue that the IMF is recommending, where is it going to come from in an environment where productivity is low? Is it going to come from taxation? Despite the fact that we're told, yes, the tax laws have been put in place, but that the objective is not to tax people. Where will the revenue come from if the economy is not productive?
Well, I think that we got some revenue. When we moved the subsidy, we had some savings, so we had some savings. Unfortunately, what happened was that the savings was not well handled. So we got the savings with the money we paid for subsidy, we didn't pay it again, and then we took it into the federal allocation account, and we shared the money. And so each time you have a federal allocation committee meeting, we are told that the money that's going to be shared by the state government is going up by so much. But by the end, what should have happened is that if we had the savings and you wanted the savings to be impactful, those savings should have been used not for sharing the way we shared it. It's just as if we inflicted pains on our people, we increased the price. Of course, the money value vis-a-vis the rate of inflation, of course. The money value is impacted anyway. It's not exactly what it was when Buhari was there. But, so we did that, we got this money, and we shared the money. And that money went into, if you like, consumption. That money went to subnational governments, and who hardly, most of them didn't even spend this money. If you go down, you begin to ask how this money is being spent, you find that even some of them are not even paying salaries. So the money went to them, and so we inflated the pain. We had some savings from subsidy, because we had put it in our budget, and when we saved this money, we did not use it well. So that was part of the problem. So what should have happened is that we would have gone and done, if you like, supplementary budget, and then agreed on how this money, extra money that was going to accrue from subsidy removal, because we had already budgeted for it. We didn't do that. And also we got some money when we floated the Naira. And the rate of exchange crashed. And what that meant is that, so if we are selling oil and we are getting so much dollars, so in Naira terms, the volume increased. Okay, but I did say that, but if inflation went up to about 34%, and it's now at 24%, then the value of that money was also affected.
Okay, Dr. Chezie, I get your point, but you say, what was saved was shared.
Yes.
And went on conspicuous consumption.
Yes.
But the another side of the narrative is, one, the federal government says it's been able to pay off its debts. Mm-hmm. Many of the state governments also say that they've been able to pay off their debts. Mm-hmm. So that's the justification they provide. Mm-hmm. Because in the IMF statement, it talked about interest spending. Yes. But the major thing that many Nigerians face is that having paid off some of these loans, Nigeria wants to borrow more. Some of the states want to borrow more. So which still takes me back to that point about productivity. How can we make this economy productive?
Yes. It's a borrowing. I think that's what people say. I've heard people make comments on the fact that all the monies previous governments have borrowed is a small fry compared to the borrowing that we're having now. So I think that's another matter. So we're going. What tends to happen in our environment is that we're focused on the next election, overly focused on the next election. If you look at what our guidelines did say, campaigning should have started by this time, but the whole place is consumed by 2027 election. So we're focused on that, and everything is being done, to make ourselves look good. And so the monies are being borrowed, and part of this money that's been spent is also being misapplied. And so you go and renovate a national conference center, and you spend 39 billion naira, and you spend that money. Where's that money coming from? And of course, the central bank has been commended by the IMF that they've stopped waste and means finance. And so when they talked about doing this unconditional cash transfer to the poor, it worked before because we printed money. So I'm on record to have said, where's the money going to come from? So you say we have the estimation is that you have 42% of multi-dimensional poor Nigerians, 42%, and we're about 200 million. 42% is close to 50 million people, or more, 50, 60, or more. In fact, close to 80. And if that is the case, where are you going to get the money to transfer to them? Where are you going to find the money from? So it's okay, for us to make recommendations that will grab headlines to say, government should transfer, alleviate poverty by making cash transfers to the poor. But where are we going to get that money? Are we going to print money again? We're not printing money anymore. So those are some of the challenges. So we'll make some of these recommendations, and then we don't think through and say, look, how are they going to be implemented? I think that's the challenge I see.
Okay, the IMF statement also talked about food insecurity in relation to poverty. But have you observed that anytime politicians come around and they start politicking, there's always food insecurity going on? So that when it is campaign time, the people will have been so hungry, and when they offer them, they queue up to collect. And the rich people, the politicians will join them, to eat corn, to eat bread, to even carry plates of food at parties, just to identify with the poor in their poverty. Yeah. And hence, when the new government comes, it's always about, we have to address food insecurity, because they know, of course, that the money shared during the political period meant nothing.
Yes, we can't address food insecurity because the problems we have there are fundamental problems. You find that what's happening is that those who should be in the farms are in the IDP camps, displaced, internally displaced people's camp. They're not there. So you go to the farms. Farm hands are not in the farms because of insecurity. And so if they're not on the farms and you're not having productivity coming from the farms, the value chain from the farm is not there anymore. Then you must have insecurity because we're not producing. And we don't even have enough resources on our hands to begin to import food and so on and so forth. We shouldn't be happening because we have vast territory that is lying fallow, that is not being utilized. And so we're having this issue. So when you're talking of looking at Nigeria and solving our problems, one of the things we needed to tackle, and unfortunately it's not been tackled, is insecurity. Instead of tackling it, it's worsening. Now, if you ask me, it's progressively, it's gotten worse. So where you find that 200 people have been slaughtered, who are in IDP camp, they go and they kill them, and people are being killed everywhere, and of course, add flooding, and so on, we're having all this crisis, then it's worsening. So, and government is not being able to impact on that effectively, in a way that is impactful. So, so it's happening. We're not doing much about it. We're not fighting it. And it seems as if those who are supposed to be pursuing them are compromised. So, that's the received wisdom. That's what people say out there. And so if those who are supposed to chase them and stop this insecurity are those giving them the guns, then say, how are you going to now be able to fight it? So I think those are challenges. So you have food insecurity because the farm productivity is not there.
Okay, Dr. Chezie, before I wrap up this segment. Yes, we know that the poor are poor and their poverty is getting worse. That's why the IMF says, worry about the poor. But in the midst of all of this, Nigerian banks are expanding. They are going onto the stock exchange in London. They are opening more branches all over the world. When they declare their profits, it's always very frightening. So Why is it that the banking sector is so productive and the people are so impoverished?
You know, Ruben, I've had this...
The people cannot even have access to their money.
Well, then that's another matter. When I've had this narrative for quite some time, and I said to people, you know, would you prefer that the banks are not profitable? That's the first question. We should begin to also think of the counterfactual. You know, so the banks are profitable, and then people are accusing them. And what is important, what we should concentrate our minds and say, look, is there anything they are doing that they should not be doing? And that's what is important as far as we're concerned. Otherwise, in fact, if they are profitable, we should be giving them kudos for doing that, because they are profitable, they are paying their taxes, and so on and so forth, and we pray that they're not doing clever financial engineering in doing the calculations in terms of the profit they make, because we know that all these things happen. So if they're not doing that, we should celebrate them for being profitable. You know, to be probably the one sector environment. But you know, banking is basic principles, procedures would always be profitable, because then the services, they take money from surplus people, they lend to people, and they lend them on conditions that they try to make sure that the monies they lend, they reduce the risk they're exposed to. And then, they do lots of services they offer, the ends of services for keeping your money, you know, so they charge you, you know, for account maintenance fee and so on. They give foreign exchange, they charge you. They make transfers, they charge you. So the banks will always remain profitable. But we shouldn't want to kill the goose and lays the golden eggs.
Yeah, the banks are the geese laying the golden eggs. But when you go to the counter, they'll tell you they don't have money.
No, but these days we don't go to counters anymore. We don't. Most of us are online. Everybody, you see them on the street.
When you go to the cash points,
yes,
they say there is no money.
Well, of course, you know, but then we have an underground second economy, which is POS operators. You know.
Anyway, thank you very much, Dr. Chezie, for joining us on this day live, this Sunday talk show.